We're really glad you could join us for the Ways to Use Water Efficiently in Your Multi-Residential Building webinar. My name is Patrick Gilbride, and I'm the Associate Director of Reep Green Solutions. I'll take a moment to introduce some of our speakers here today. Brendan Schaefer has a background of construction and renovations, has worked with Reep Green Solutions as a water advisor over the last 10 years. Wayne Brabazon has held the water efficiency technologist position at the Region of Waterloo for 15 years to date and works extensively with the commercial, institutional, and industrial sectors on their water efficiency initiatives. The challenge as the region's water efficiency technologist is in convincing companies to consider and commit to water saving projects with the assistance of rebate funding from the region. Wayne lives on the west side of Kitchener with his family and associated pets, a family that includes 2 children still attending high school. His outdoor pursuits include canoeing in the summer and snowboarding, skiing in the winter, all activities he notes that require lots of water and snow. And last but not least, we have Nicole Haynes. Nicole joined the Region of Waterloo's 5 years ago with 10 years of experience in environmental compliance and water leak detection. As a water programs coordinator at the region, Nicole coordinates residential water efficiency programs to help residents lower their water bills and reduce our community's overall water consumption. In her spare time, she loves taking family walks with their dogs on local trails, crafting with her kids, and scuba diving with her hubby. Again, another water activity there. So why don't we start off with you, Nicole, and you can maybe describe to us why we should consider conserving water.
Sure. Well, water efficiency in our region is very important because approximately 80% of our drinking water comes from a limited supply of groundwater. And we also have a rapidly growing population, expected to reach more than 1 million residents before 2050, which puts a lot of demands on our ecosystems and our water systems. So using water efficiently will help avoid expensive new infrastructure costs and protect our environment. Water efficiency is also a good investment for businesses, for landlords, property managers, and using water inefficiently can actually lead to higher water bills, water waste, and ultimately cost you more money. This is especially true for buildings with older, less efficient toilet, shower heads, other fixtures, or buildings with both significant water leaks or unnoticed water leaks. And sometimes making changes to improve your building's water efficiency up front, like before an issue needs to be addressed or is noticed, can also lower your costs for years to come. And then again, educating tenants to recognize water loss problems and report them is also a great opportunity to lower our building's water consumption.
Thanks, Nicole. That's a really great overview. More specifically, maybe you could dig into some of the benefits to property owners, and why they might consider replacing their water fixtures.
Sure. So sometimes in water use in multi-residential buildings, it can be out of your control if you have the water use can be out of your control if you have tenants. You can try providing reminders and tools to promote water efficiency in your units, like tools like shower timers or links to some of our webinars on our website and posters. But you can also try replacing water fixtures and or upgrading water appliances. By replacing fixtures, like upgrading to 3-liter per flush toilets or more efficient shower heads, you can save money on your water bills. You can help to discover and fix leaks in your buildings and protect our resources. You can also promote your building as a more environmentally friendly or centered building to future tenants with the use of the newest water efficient fixtures and technologies. You can also benefit by receiving money from the region, either through our toilet flapper and fixture replacement program or our multi-residential funding program. And if you're wondering if your tenants have higher than usual water bill compared to other buildings in the region, consider this. The average person in the region of Waterloo uses approximately 4.5 cubic meters of water per month. And if your water bills are higher than this average, then you're considered a higher than average water user. So the region offers support and funding to make water efficiency projects easier through a variety of programs. One of these programs that we have is our toilet flapper and fixture replacement program. It offers participants an instant $15 rebate for every toilet flapper replaced. And when you apply for the program, you can also request free water efficient shower heads and tap aerators that we at the region would ship to you so that you can install as part of your project. And this program really benefits buildings with suspected toilet leaks and or older fixtures. It's recommended that the toilet flappers in general be replaced every 3 to 5 years because they can degrade. So it's a really great opportunity for you to increase your water savings while also receiving an instant rebate from the region. And again, the free shower heads and aerators. Something to keep in mind, a leaky toilet flapper can silently leak up to 330 liters of water per day. So that can really add up on water bills. And if you're interested in applying for this program, you can apply at regionofwaterloo.ca/multi-res water. So we do have a couple of success stories. The one I'll talk about is we had a participant who replaced 73 of their toilet flappers in an older apartment building. And with this one small switch, they saved more than 2,000 cubic meters of water per year, which equal to savings of more than $12,000 for the year for the building. And since the cost of the program, well, the cost of the toilet flappers actually were rebated by the region, the only cost of the project were the plumbing costs. And this participant actually saw a payback period of less than a year. One thing to keep in mind is that buildings with above average use of water are more likely to see a greater impact from replacing toilet flappers alone. And then the best way to see the maximum benefit from this particular program is to replace all the toilet flappers in your building. It's also a great opportunity to educate your tenants on possible signs of a leaking toilet. Like if there's continue running water, they can also use food coloring to test for leaks and things like that. So we actually have another program that I'd love to tell you about, which is our multi-residential high-rise funding program. And this program is a good fit for larger buildings and for those with who are okay having a longer wait for the funding. Because funding amounts for this program are based on the total capital costs spent on the project, as well as the water savings achieved by the project, by which we look at the water used by the building the year before the project and the year after the project was completed. And then the building must also have a minimum payback period of at least 2 years. And because of the way the funding is calculated for this program, using that water billing data from the year before and the year after, you might not receive your rebate for this project or for this program for up to 2 years post-project completion. So it's a bit of a longer wait than the toilet flapper fixture replacement program. And then the water savings achieved through this program also depends on the age of fixtures in your building. Like I mentioned before, replacing older inefficient toilets and shower heads has a bigger impact on your water use than newer ones. And then the size of the building, whether or not all of the fixtures are replaced or just some, the type of fixtures being installed, and then the typical water use in the building. And this program can also be applied to at regionofwaterloo.ca/multi-res water. And I believe we also have the success story for this one. So water efficiency upgrades are worth it all on their own in the long run. But this success story demonstrates how the region can help support you in the process of achieving improved water efficiency and water savings. So in this case, a property manager owned a 140 unit apartment building and wanted to proactively reduce the per unit high water use. They replaced all of the toilets, the tap aerators, and the shower heads for all units in the building. And each unit had 2 bathrooms. So it was actually, they replaced 280 toilets with 3-layer per flush models. And then post-project, after calculating the water savings and the payback period, the region was able to provide this participant with more than a $5,500 rebate in funding. And the building also now uses $5,000 less of water each year, and saw savings of more than $18,000 $100,000 based on the city of Waterloo's current water rates at the time of the project.
So at this point, I'd like to bring Wayne into the conversation. So Wayne, I understand that metering water at individual units is a good way to achieve water savings. So what are some of the benefits you can tell us about from sub-metering?
Okay, thanks, Patrick, for that introduction. Today, I'd like to talk to everyone about the value of sub-metering multi-res properties where there is only one single city meter. So what the region does to help people, property managers fund this project is we do a 50-50 cost sharing. We split the cost, and there is a maximum of 10,000 per property, but looking at an average over the last number of years, it's about $250 a meter, the region's half, that you can receive for many units. So eligibility, properties, they have to be connected to the municipal water supply system within the region of Waterloo, and they need to have completed the installation of sub-meters at that property and provide me with a copy of any paid invoicing so that I can calculate the rebate payable. Now, not so much eligibility as practicality. The plumbing must be conducive to sub-metering installations, and I can talk a little more about that as I go through these slides. As per Nicole's presentation, you would apply online for this program at the regionofwaterloo.ca/multi-res water, where you'll see and find all the information and forms required. So next slide, please, Patrick. Thank you. So why sub-meter? Well, you can now bill tenants fairly for the water that they actually use, not just applying some sort of mathematical division, which if there's some sort of leak, like a toilet running, you're not going to know where it is. Everyone's sharing the cost of what is essentially one unit's responsibility. And so it's only fair. Now, the bottom line is sub-metering a multi-res property, it will encourage water efficient changes in behavior that will lower the water use on an average around 15%. And this has been shown because now they're being built on their actual cubic meter of water usage, and any issues can be identified, located, repaired, dealt with. And as the next bullet says, it identifies leaks and high water use. It allows you to focus where your attentions need to be focused. I have seen a situation where there was a leak under a unit in a townhouse complex, a lot of water running into the ground, and they would have never known where to sort of rip up the concrete as they had to without sort of some sub-metering. Now, sub-metering companies, they can provide, of course, the supply and installation of the sub-meters, and they can provide data collection services. They can reconcile with the city bill, and they can send bills to the tenants, and they can provide services up to and including collections of the monies owed. So breaking it into three sort of categories, there's those smaller multi-residential properties like duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. There's companies that focus on that size. There's townhouse complexes, 50, 60, 70 sort of unit size. There's companies that can focus on those properties. And there's also companies that focus on like apartment buildings, which are a little bit unique in that those buildings tend to have a hot and a cold riser, their pipes running through the building. And so you typically need 2 meters per unit in that situation. Now, the diagrams, the photos on the right, the top one is of typical, what I call invasive, in so much as it has to be plumbed in. The third-party companies provide that. That's typical in townhouses and apartments. The lower diagram is just interesting. It's a non-invasive, meaning it just straps onto the meter. And that can be used more for investigative purposes, like looking at overnight flows, if you really want to nail down where a problem's happening. And the fun fact, the 15%, I've seen better than 15%. People will change their behavior if they're paying for their utility costs, in particular water. So next slide, please, Patrick. So as far as case studies, I mean, the large townhouse properties, this is really where the program got going around 10 years ago, where each townhouse unit is submetered to the unit for individual water usage and cubic meters. The plumbing tends to be a bit more straightforward in townhouses. There tends to be one supply line into the unit. And in the last 10 years, I've done 19 townhouses. They've received funding for submetering, and that's a lot of units. If you look at the two pictures on the right at the top, typical townhouse complexes, they're aerial photos, large area, spread out. One on the left is Morgan Avenue in Kitchener. The one on the right is Margaret Avenue in Cambridge. And moving on to apartment buildings, this is, again, we meter to each unit so we can see how much water each unit actually used. But as mentioned, you typically need 2 submeters in apartment buildings because of the way the plumbing works. The 3 pictures at the lower part of the diagram there are actually student apartments. It's University Avenue, Regina Street, Marshall Street up in Waterloo. And they're apartment buildings. Now, because they're students, you might find in this situation, they're probably not billing the tenants specifically, but they are receiving data on where the water's going. And they can, I know those places, they tend to have 4 students maybe in one unit, the way their architecture is arranged. At least you can focus your efforts as property managers on where to deal with it. Do you have to deal with tenants and say, don't leave that tap running, or do you have to fix something? So that's sort of the overview of submetering. I'd like to hand it back to Patrick, and any questions you have for me specifically, if you could wait to the question and answer period, I'd be happy to answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wayne. So at this point, I think it's helpful to take a step back and better understand how to prioritize some of the water saving measures that Wayne and Nicole described. So Brendan, you've got a lot of experience doing water audits. What are some of the main things that you look for when you're doing a water audit?
Yeah, well, just to start off, sort of what we do when we typically do when we do a water audit on a building. We would do an on-site inspection where we come in and look at the fixtures in the building. We'd look at the mechanical room and the shared the spaces, and then we'd look at the fixtures in some of the individual units. We usually do about 10 units, and look at the toilets and showers and faucets and any sort of appliances that may be in their dishwashers or washing machines, that sort of thing. We also install a smart meter on the main water meter. That was the orange meter that Wayne had a picture of in the previous one of the previous slides there, and that allows us to collect some data, some smart meter data. It gives us a closer, we can more closely monitor the usage, and we do that for about a week. And it shows us each time of day, how much water is being used, and that way we can do a little analysis of things like, how much water is due to leaks that are happening. We can tell that by looking at the usage overnight when, at times of the night when there normally wouldn't be any or hardly any usage. And so we we do that for a week and then go back and collect that meter. And then we send a report that has an analysis of where the water usage is and what, sort of things you might be able to do to reduce it. On the next slide, there's this is a part of the report that we would send, sort of gives a chart with where the savings opportunities are for each of the different sort of fixtures or areas of the building. You can see on the left side there, it just lists some recommended upgrades to make and what you might the amount that you would save from doing that versus how much it costs to do it, and then it gives you sort of an estimate of how long that takes to pay off. And as you can see, it's a pretty detailed analysis, and you can then decide which of the fixture replacement are going to be your better bet, and they're going to pay off more for you. This is some data from some of the buildings that we have done water audits on before. This is the sort of smaller buildings of between 9 to 50 units. You can see here, though, that the savings versus investment, the average ROI is about 23%, which is, really huge. That's bigger than you're going to get, putting it in the stock market. So if you just are investing money in upgrading some of these things, it's going to be quite a substantial payback that you're getting for it. So it really doesn't cost you money. Certainly it takes time to pay for that to pay itself back, but the savings just keep on going even after that payback period. The next slide is sort of larger buildings. You can see it's a little bit even better payback on these. These are actual buildings that we've done. So this is not theoretical, but sort of more practical, hands-on. This is what we've seen in terms of what the possibilities are for these buildings. And you can see the average is 36% return on investment, which is obviously a huge return on investment. So it really is a good business decision to do some of these things that are going to make a big difference. In the next slide we have some things that just some different types of upgrades that we recommend typically. The fixing leaks is a really big one, and it's kind of a no-brainer. Usually it's toilets that are leaking. That's the most common, and that's usually a pretty simple thing to fix. That's fairly inexpensive. Usually it entails just replacing the rubber flapper, which Nicole was talking about, the program that the region has for offsetting that cost, but it's a fairly simple thing to do, and it does pay back high dividends. So replacing the flapper, sometimes it's just a matter of adjusting the valves so that the water level in the tank isn't overflowing into the overflow. That's an even easier one oftentimes to do. But upgrading shower heads is another thing that is really important and that does save a lot, and it's a fairly inexpensive and simple thing to do. Showers tend to be the biggest use of water in residential settings, so upgrading to a higher efficient shower head can cut that right in half. Oftentimes can cut the amount of water that's being used by showers right in half. So it's really an easy and a good one to do. Aerators is another one, the little ends that go on the faucets, and that can help save. Washing machines and dishwashers are also good. It's a little bit higher investment, but sometimes that does make a big difference that can pay off as well. Upgrading toilets to higher efficiency toilets, we've talked about that, and that's often a part of some of the incentive programs that the region has. And then again, we talked about submetering, and Wayne was telling you a bit about how that affects your saving water. Salt management is another thing that we like to encourage. It's not exactly this in the same ballpark as saving water. It's not really the same issue, but it is an important issue in conserving our natural resource of water that we need for drinking water and for our municipal water. Mostly we're talking about salt that is used for winter maintenance that's being put on to driveways and parking areas. Basically what's happening is that the salt that we put down is getting into the underground aquifers in our under the ground that we use for drinking water in the region, and starting to contaminate the water supply. So we're really trying to encourage efficient use of that salt and keeping it, and basically best practices that keep it out of the groundwater. Smart About Salt is a program that sort of educates building owners, but also winter maintenance contractors. So a big part of this push is to make sure that building managers and building owners are hiring contractors who are Smart About Salt certified. That means they've been trained and they know about storing salt in a secure area to avoid spillage. piling the snow on a paved surface and make sure that the drainage is going to a catchment or somewhere that's not going to go into the groundwater. And then possibly closing off unused areas that that require maintenance in the winter, to reduce the amount of maintenance that you're having to do. Patio areas or different areas that aren't needed in the winter, that you then don't need to plow and salt. So that's kind of the gist of the salt management aspect of water conservation.
Perfect. Thank you, Brendan. So I think we'll leave it there. Just want to say thank you to everybody for coming and taking time out of their lunch hours, and to our presenters, Nicole, Wayne, and Brendan, for all the really useful information. Thank you, presenters. Thanks to the Region Waterloo for sponsoring this webinar and helping to make it happen. Thanks, everybody, and we hope to see you at one of these in the future. Thanks again. Have a good day.
Thanks, Patrick. Thank you, everyone.